This is an important video. We're gonna talk about Little Leaguer's shoulder and Little Leaguer's elbow because I get questions on these two things all the time. I get patients coming into the clinic and saying, just have Little League elbow, or my son just has Little League shoulder. And that's a problem because Little League shoulder and Little League elbow are actually growth plate fractures. You can see in the x-rays on the screen how the growth plate is actually pulled away, or the piece of bone is pulled away from the growth plate, widened that growth plate and opened it up. It's called a Salter-Harris fracture of the growth plate. And it's technically a bone fracture. The growth plate is at times the weakest point in the bone or the musculoskeletal system. Sometimes the muscles are stronger, sometimes the tendons are stronger, and often the ligaments are stronger than these growth plates where the bone is not completely fused. The shoulder and the elbow, we don't see those growth plate injuries as these athletes get older. So if you have Little League shoulder, or your son or daughter has Little League shoulder, Little League elbow, or if you have a player on your team that has one of these two things, we're thinking about managing these similar to a non-displaced fracture for the most part. What are the risks of playing through Little League shoulder, or just Little League shoulder, or just Little League elbow? One of the big risks, separating that growth plate further. Permanently stunting or damaging the growth of one of the long bones of the arm. That's a really big problem. When you stunt the growth of a long bone, whether you're humerus distally or proximally, or whether you're radius, if you're dealing with more of a Panner's disease with Little League elbow, we're talking about changes that occur to those bones that cannot be fixed. Those are long-term, irreparable damages that we're not going to be able to do something about. So that's why we need to be careful with our growth plate injuries. On top of that, fractures of a growth plate are indicative of pathological stresses to the shoulder and the elbow. The same stress that tears your UCL, you can see I've done that, I've had that scar. The same stress that tears that UCL is going to be the same stress that overloads that medial growth plate on the humerus here. Why does that occur? That occurs because the elbow is improperly positioned as too much load is applied or load is applied too often. We know that if your arm is positioned in a better position, it takes load off of that growth plate and off of the Tommy John ulnar collateral ligament, which has gotten a lot of popularity because of that Tommy John surgery that we see in a lot of our professional throwers. We want to avoid those things, and if we have an athlete that comes into our clinic or our facility at 10, 11, 12, maybe up to 15 years old who has Little League elbow, we're going to do the things necessary to get their throw better and get their arm stronger so that they can avoid the potential ramifications of continuing to throw with poor mechanics that leave their elbow in a bad position throughout the rest of their career, which is potentially going to contribute to ulnar collateral ligament tears later on in high school or college. Same thing at the shoulder. We see that the same stresses that damage the proximal humeral epiphysis or epiphyseal plate, the growth plate, are the same things that are going to lead to labral tears and rotator cuff tears in our more mature throwers. If we can get athletes to throw better after those injuries, whether they heal fully right away or whether that's a lingering issue that they keep having elbow pain, keep having shoulder pain regardless, we want to get those athletes to throw more efficiently so they avoid these things in the future. A lot of times what we see is athletes who have elbow pain have shoulder pain, and it goes away. Now they feel better and they go back to throwing the same way they did before their injury. And when I see them is after their second and third injury often, when they're not able to be successfully rehabilitated through formal means. And then they say, what can we do? It's like, well, we got to change the way that you throw. And that's what I wish we could access these athletes before they have Little League shoulder, before they have Little League elbow, but especially after those instances so we can avoid future growth plate injuries and future elbow, shoulder injuries like torn labrums, like ulnar collateral ligament tears, like tendinous ruptures on the medial side of the elbow or strains and sprains that plague an athlete throughout their career. This is a big issue. I see this all the time. Oh, Johnny just has Little League elbow. Jimmy over here just has it's just Little League shoulder. No, it's not just Little League shoulder. He fractured a bone in his shoulder, he fractured a bone in his elbow. He needs to take adequate rest and he needs to take the adequate steps to avoid that in the future and to avoid future injury. This is an important message. I hope you guys can share this with your coaches, with other parents, and with players because I want to get this out there. I think we need to be more educated on growth plate injuries in our young athletes, and this is kind of where we start. We've done other videos in the past on some exercises for Little League elbow, Little League shoulder, Panner's disease, as well as some of the pathology. Check out those videos, but make sure you share this message with your coaches, whether you share this video or just relay the message. I want to put together a blog associated with this with some more in-depth information on pathological biomechanics, but here's where we start. Thanks guys for watching. Subscribe to the channel and we'll see you in the next one.